Tabletopped will start after the following messages.
Hey, I'm Brando.
And I'm Owen.
And we're the hosts of Banter and Such.
Each week we get together with the most interesting people that we know and talk about the things that we're generally interested in.
Like movies.
TV shows.
Movies.
Nostalgic childhood franchises.
Movies.
Urban legends.
And sometimes movies.
So check out Banter and Such anywhere you get podcasts.
Banter, ampersand, such.
Or banter and then the word and then such.
Or just banter and it fills in the rest automatically for you and you just click on it.
Either way, it's called Banter and Such.
Want to get into some BS with us?
Once in a while, there's a game that comes out that completely blows your mind. Today on Tabletopped, we talk about Baldur's Gate 3!
I thought we were talking about Mario versus Rabbids.
No, that's a different
okay.
episode. All right, so Shade. So for people who don't know, what is Baldur's Gate as a setting, as a game series? Like, what is the history of this game for those who are woefully in the dark?
Sure. So Baldur's Gate is a city in the Sword Coast of Faerun, which is the Forgotten Realms setting of D&D. The game is so Baldur's Gate 3 is the third installment of a game that centers around the city of Baldur's Gate. The first two came out like 20 plus years ago. They're what you call a CRPG, which is to say a computer RPG, and the narrative between 1 and 2 is pretty tight and clear. The narrative between 2 and 3 is it's there. There's still obvious connections.
It's kind of like Diablo or something where there's not a direct line through, but like the events of the past games affects where you're at in the current games.
I would say so, yeah. There's more of a focus on some other issues in 3.
Sure.
But there are through lines, there are nets. It's just the through line is a lot more clear between 1 and 2.
Gotcha.
So Baldur's Gate 3, unlike BG 1 and 2, is developed by a different company. It's Larian for Baldur's Gate 3, who, are well known for their Divinity Original Sin series.
Oh, they did Divinity.
Yeah, they did Divinity.
This makes a lot of sense to me. When I saw the graphics, I was like, oh my God, this is like better than any other D&D property I've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of great graphics, very beautiful game for sure. But the Baldur's Gate 3 in particular, you don't spend a lot of time in Baldur's Gate, at least for a good long time. In fact, there are 3 acts, as it were, in the game. The first act, more or less, was entirely available for the last few years through early access. And the second act and third act have just now become available with the full release.
And we've talked a little bit about early access stuff. Yeah. And you were like, it's cool. It doesn't feel like quite scratch all the itch of a 5e campaign. Like it's just like not as flexible. But from what I hear, that may have changed from early access to...
Oh, no, I would...
It's still not quite the whole thing.
So, it is very difficult, nigh on impossible, to really take a TTRPG rule set and put it into a computer. Yeah, you do have to have certain limitations that you won't have necessarily at a table. The first Baldur's Gate, because those first 2 games, they come out way before 5th edition came out. So I believe they were based on 2nd edition, if memory serves. Yeah. And this one is based around 5th edition. The bones are there. You can definitely see it. But there are a lot of things that are, this is a Larian game. And this was one of my initial curmudgeon-y, I was kind of hoping I would really just get to play 5e on my computer, but I'm not. I'm playing Divinity, and that's not a problem.
but I'm still mad about it.
But I still wish that I was just playing 5e because I'm dumb. That said, the game came out on August 3rd. It's now August 13th. In 10 days, I have squeezed 80 hours, and I am not an individual who has free time.
Yeah.
So managing that and managing my attention to that is a testament, I think, to.
And you were like pretty like excited too. I remember because our D&D night is the night it came out, and you were like, "Hey y'all, sorry, I've just been pretty distracted today because I've been just thinking and like we're getting ready to play Baldur's Gate 3."
It was. Yeah, a lot of fun. I definitely was very excited to play our game, but when we ended, I was like, okay, and now I'm going to go play this for a few more hours.
Yeah.
So, again, with the 5e aspect, here's just a nice little example. Skill checks are there. There's initiative. There's a lot of, the basics of the classes, but there are some major differences. So you want to push something. That's usually replacing an attack option, or action rather, in 5th edition. Here, you're just pushing things as bonus actions. You want to drink a potion? That's an action.
Yeah,
you're just drinking them as a bonus action.
Yeah.
They enforce, and this is going to vary from table to table, but the official 5e rules. You have a skill check and you roll a 1 or a 20. Cool. Add your modifier. It might still win. Nope. You roll a 1 or a 20 in this. It is auto.
You're done.
Succeed or fail, or reverse fail or succeed.
Do you it's turn based, I assume, with initiative?
So the game does when you enter combat, it enters an initiative. You roll for initiative, you enter an initiative state. You can also turn on a turn based mode at any time if you'd like, although that's not necessarily worthwhile always. There are specific moments where if you're trying to thoughtfully navigate an area that has like a lot of landmines or something like that, it might be worth your time. But generally speaking, I don't play with turn-based on until I'm in the fight.
Yeah.
It auto rolls everything. But it's true to a Larian game. And what I mean by that, did you play Divinity?
No, I've only watched my friends play it.
Yeah. So I love the second one in particular. The first one's good too. Don't get me wrong. I played a lot of the second one. I think I beat it, but it was long enough ago that I'm now doubting that. In any event, one of my bigger complaints with Divinity, and it carries over into Baldur's Gate 3, is that archers are so powerful. And ranged attack, ranged attack should be powerful. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But 5th edition archery versus this archery are two very different things, because they are constantly giving you arrows, or like, okay, yeah, you shoot this and it's going to spread fire in the area, or it's going to spread
going to explode.
They're like, you get nothing but trick arrows and exploding arrows and all sorts of stuff. And it's just like, well, geez.
I wish I had a trick hammer.
that really changes things. But, to that point about the trick hammer, Larian is very magic item happy.
Sure.
So, it's not like being in 2017 Daniels games where you don't see it. It's a magic item desert.
Yeah.
It is. You're going to have them constantly given to you. And there are a lot of fun magic items. But one of the bigger aspects of this game, and what really makes it feel like D&D, is not necessarily the combat and things like that. It is the freedom of choice in this game. Yeah,
I was like looking online at people's reviews and like talking about it. And one article I read was just all the other AAA developers that were like, don't get used to this. This level of variety that you can get in this game is something that we as other studios are not going to like do, because it is wild. So, to me, immediately I was like, I want to play this game, because it sounds like you can really make it your own in a way that maybe, and this is, I guess, a question for you. Does it like surpass the sort of BioShocky, BioWare, like good, evil, middle sort of options? Do you have more choice in that, or is it still sort of that spectrum?
I'm going to say something that's going to be, I think, a little contrary to how people may try to. So I think it's fantastic, and I think it does give me a lot of freedom, and I feel that. But when I really think about this, having played these kinds of games for so long, at the end of the day, I don't feel like it's so robust that it is infinite. Like I haven't gotten to the end of the game. I am a monster and I do occasionally spoil stuff for myself. And I really didn't intend to on this one, but I was on a lunch break and I was like, oh, I'm kind of wondering about something.
I should also just mention to our audience who might be trying to skip ahead right now,
I'm
we're
not
not going to spoil it.
Yeah. I was kind of wondering about something. I went ahead and someone had made a comment on a thread that I was reading that was completely, and I was like, what is that comment about? Because that kind of puts a sour, they're clearly further ahead. They should have probably spoiler tagged, but they didn't, and whatever. And then I kind of dug into it, and I was like, okay, that's interesting that this happens this way. And it did make me think, well, they have taught, just touted that there were 17,000 variable endings for this game, and I was like, that's wild, and can't really believe it.
Yeah.
And my suspicions on that's being wild and can't really believe it are pretty accurate.
Yeah, it's sort of like the Mass Effect thing where there's a lot of ways you can get to the end of Mass Effect 3, but one of three options generally are going to happen.
I think that that's a fair assessment.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And, will it scratch the same itch that you have felt with games like Mass Effect or Knights of the Old Republic?
Those are my favorite type of games.
Fucking hell yes. And that's why I'm devoting so much time to it. That's why I've been so invested into it, because it has captured that magic that I really haven't felt in a good while. I mean,
that sort of type of game has sort of fallen off.
It really has.
Even ones that are closer to it, that I would say Red Dead 2, one of our favorite games.
Red Dead. Yeah.
That game has some of these morality choices in it, but it doesn't focus on it as much as it's the core gameplay is going to stay the same no matter what.
Yeah.
And I remember in BioShock, I'm always such a goody two shoes and everything, something that is also similar about us. But I remember one of my friends playing through BioShock 2, I think, and there's a moment that, because he was full renegade, that this really fucking hard boss was standing on this balcony and was like, well, what are you going to do about it? And he had the option of taking out his pistol and shooting the explosives behind the guy and immediately just killing him. And I was like, this took me an hour to get through because I didn't have that option as a renegade or whatever. I feel we it's been a little while since we've seen that be one of the core mechanics of a game.
For sure. And what's really fun about this is because it does have that 5e or just D&D in general aspect, there are things. So I just started last night. Jackie and I were just kind of, I worked late and I came home and I was like, I kind of feel like playing this. And she's like, I would actually like to watch. And so I threw it up on the TV. And rather than pick up in the middle of my main campaign, I was like, I'm going to start something new because I don't want to have to be like, well, here's what's happening. And also because I am so neurotic, I didn't want to have to go, oh, I didn't like the way that was said or something like that. So I'm going to reload it and enjoy watching this over again.
Yeah.
So I tried something new. There were immediately, I tried to, I think, my main campaign, my character's a bard / ranger, and
you can multi-class.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's cool. So there are three difficulty settings.
Yeah.
There's one that's just focus on the story. Then there's balanced, and then there's tactician or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
The lowest level you can't multi-class, which come on, why? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Maybe it becomes too easy, or
who cares? You're here for the story. Anyway, that's a small gripe. Anyway, I started something new, and there were immediately options I was playing as a sorcerer, and then I had this option to interact with something in the early tutorial thing that I didn't have as my ranger / bard character.
Interesting.
And I was just, it completely changed how I did something. I still went and did the other stuff that I would have done anyway, because I was like, well, I know there's treasure back there that I want. But it was interesting to just have that option.
Kind of like in Skyrim when depending on the different race you are, the the lords of the jarls or whatever will treat you different because they're like, hey, we're Nordsmen here and we fucking hate you.
Well, and that's definitely true to this game too, because they have all the primary player handbook 5e player handbook races, but they also allow you to play a Githyanki or Gith.
It's a Spelljammer.
Yeah. So that's really fun, and people will react to you a little bit differently. And you may have whole other dialogue options that you wouldn't have had otherwise. I came across a party that was kind of stalking through woods at one point.
Yeah.
And my ranger bard character cautiously approaches them, hiding behind a tree. And they see you. There are all these passive checks that are happening. I think this is just one that they didn't have like a passive stealth check or something, which is fine. But they just see you and they're like, hey, come out, or who are you? And I had this ranger option. It's like someone who's seen hunts enough to know you're after something. What is it? You know, and that's an interesting thing to be able to say.
Yeah.
Because it can lead down other dialogue paths. But sometimes I will find that the trees aren't as robust as maybe I might have suspected.
Yeah.
So,
and to be clear here, you're not talking about the forest trees that you hide behind. You're talking about the dialogue trees. Yes.
Yeah, the dialogue trees. I like a thick tree, folks. What can I say? But,
that's why he's always a ranger.
That's why my name's Shane. Anyway.
But so in this game, we've talked a little bit about the sort of like basic structure of the game. I just want to run through some of like, classic, like X-Play style, like metrics. Graphics. From what I've seen, graphics seem pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think it is an absolutely gorgeous game. So right now it's available for PC specifically. In September, in a few weeks here, it's going to be available for PS5 and presumably Mac. My PC it's a little laptop. It's on the higher end, and I can run it on, I think, the highest graphics setting.
But on it.
Boy, yeah. It may be just shy, but boy, you should feel how hot that thing is. I mean, it's gonna take some oomph and some toll on your system, I think. That said, like, I don't know that I would. I'm trying to decide, like, and I know Red Dead 2 came out ages ago at this point, but I'm trying to decide if it's better than Red Dead 2.
I mean, they're very different.
They're different.
I feel like this one's more like character model focused, which Red Dead was not. It was more scenic and like all that kind of stuff.
Interestingly, I actually so kind of a small complaint.
Yeah.
With character choices, they did so great on so many levels. You can modify quite a lot, and they also really did great with inclusivity.
Yeah.
You can't, though. There are like very big limits on what your body can look like. For like a human, for example. Yeah. Or a number of other like elves and tieflings, for example. You can be body type A, B, C, or D. Right. And essentially that is typically coded female, typically coded male, very big, tall, and strong versions of each of those. And that's it. And you can't like say, okay, well, I want a little gut. I want a little, I want to change the height a little bit. Can you
do like androgynous sort of stuff? Or?
So you can, yeah. So this is another thing. And you can disable some of this. There's like nudity in the game and things like that. But if you don't disable it, you can choose your genitalia and you can also choose your pronouns and things like that. So like it is great on that inclusivity aspect. But I do think that, it's very limiting on, you are either traditionally athletic looking or you're really tall and athletic looking and bulky. And that is it. And I was just kind of like, what?
So Thor from Ragnarok.
Right. I want to play Ragnarok Thor. Yeah. Something like that. And it's even more limited for like your small folks. So like a halfling, a gnome, dwarves.
Can't do the tall athletic.
No. You can't be any more squirt than you already are. You're just that. That's a little limiting.
Okay, but like character choice there seems like it's not as good as it could be, but it's comprehensive. Yeah. Okay, so let's move off of graphics. Let's go to mechanics. So we've talked a little bit about the mechanics of the game, that there are a lot of these passive roles that you aren't doing the roles. But how does it feel to play? Is it like in game design? I think I've talked about it on the pod before, but there's like every mechanic should fall into a category, either like a strong mechanic that's fun, a strong mechanic that's not fun, a weak mechanic that's fun, or a weak mechanic that is unfun. And you try to have as many weak, fun mechanics as possible to like make sure that the game feels robust and fun to play. So as somebody who's played 80 hours at this point, like, what does it feel like to play? Is it something that's like gets very repetitive? Is it like one lever that you're pulling all the time? Are there varied mechanics that feel good, or how's it you know,
That's
as a game?
interesting. I will say the mechanics that are there, I want to engage with them constantly.
Oh, yeah.
I know I am a person who likes skill checks. Sorry, Franco. But but skill checks feel so rewarding in this game.
Yeah.
I really love the combat. There's a lot of great strategizing that you can do. I love the interacting with dialogue. There's a lot of things that you can just interact with in general. And you can do a lot of things that you won't necessarily think about, like right-clicking on something is imperative because it'll list a list of things that you maybe weren't thinking about, like, oh yeah, right, I could pick this up, I could throw this, I could, you know, any number of things. I think mechanically this is a top tier game for sure. Yeah. And it's beautiful and it's mechanically amazing. It also does a great thing where it moves some of the 5e things so well. Mm-hmm. So one of my favorite spells is Featherfall.
Yeah.
Featherfall's a reaction.
Yeah.
Okay, but how do you do that in a CRPG? Well, I guess you could. So they do have a reaction system, and they can either automatically, your characters can automatically, or you can set it so that it prompts you to ask.
Yeah.
So like attacks of opportunity, for example. For all my characters, I say, no, prompt me to ask whether I want to do that attack of opportunity, because I may not want to waste it on this character.
Right.
They didn't do that with Featherfall because they were like, I guess how often are we really going to just have them falling?
Yeah.
But what they did is they made it a bonus action and a ritual, so I don't have to even use a spell slot.
Yeah.
And it will last for
10
minutes or something. And then I can just jump off stuff. Way more fun than I could ever want. You know, and that's also very Larian. They're big on jump and verticality in their games.
Okay, then let's go a little bit towards story and everything. Again, no spoilers. Mm-hmm. I'm basically asking about the shape of it, and also, you know, video game writing is sort of like has a different tier system to, you know, normal storytelling and writing, in my opinion. Like most games are fairly simple stories and like have a hard time with nuance, and kind of also has a hard time with humor, except if you're in like a game that specializes in it, I guess.
Sure.
So in that way, in the sort of D&D setting, is it like thematically and like story and writing wise, does it feel good, or?
So I have been harsh on the Forgotten Realms in the past on the podcast.
Yes.
Overly harsh, and I've said it a number of times. I'm sorry, Ed Green. Redwood. But
man, you gotta let that go.
I will never, because I was in a bad mood.
Yeah.
It's a good setting. It's a cool setting. This is the most... I enjoyed the original Baldur Gate, don't get me wrong, games, but I was always more of a Planescape Torment guy. This is... I am so invested. I am so freaking invested in this story.
Yeah.
It is compelling. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like... It feels like something that any one of my friends could have put together for a campaign for me.
Yeah.
Which I felt kind of about the D&D movie as well, where they kind of they hit that sweet spot where it's like, this is professionally done, but this is still very clearly D&D.
Yeah, it does feel like we're kind of entering into sort of a golden era of like designers and developers of these sorts of types of media who are like, oh, we don't have to have like a perfectly like all the air is like out of these games. Like we can do a game that just captures the feel of playing these games rather than, you know, telling a professional, like, you know, the original D&D movie was like, let's do a movie that we want to tell and then skin it with D&D.
Yeah,
and
I guess.
Instead it's like the way the property has been handled recently has been like, why don't we actually try to encapsulate the feeling of this game? And I feel like that's like a really good like move that they made.
For sure. And I am so invested in the story that's going on and the NPCs. Are there issues with pacing sometimes? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I entered Act 2 and I don't think this is spoiler.
Sure.
I'm just going to say that something can happen in Act 2, something will happen in Act 2 at a place that it just should not have happened. It should have happened, it should be prompted to happen about 3/4 of the way through Act 2.
Right.
And it happens very early on. And if things go wrong, i.e. a fight happens, and if you roll badly in that initiative,
you're done.
So many things spiral out of control that actually will completely remove entire quest lines.
Ooh.
And I save scummed like mad there because I was like that. Initially, I went, "Holy shit, this is so amazing!" I was in awe of what just happened because I was just like, and I was like tempted to be like, "Oh man, I'm gonna let this happen. I'm gonna let this disaster happen," and that is so narratively rich. And then I thought for a second, and I went, "Except for now, I'm letting down some of my team because now we can't do certain things that are pivotal to their character development."
Yeah.
And I felt so sad and then went, I'm going to reload.
Can I ask a question? Because I totally get where you're coming from. And like in Red Dead Redemption 2, I played it the first time and I got my ending and I got like how I played that game. It was a very amazing experience. But then I immediately restarted and was like, okay, I gotta do things a little differently because like I never got to see this quest line and this I've heard is amazing and all these things, and my actions sort of closed a lot of doors throughout the game. Yeah. Do you think that people who are not ill in the way that we are, where we have to like, you know, make these imaginary people happy, stuff like that? Do you think that people like that will, like, who don't suffer from that affliction still feel that way about this moment? Or are they going to just have that immediate reaction that you had of like, holy shit, this is amazing kind of thing?
I mean, I think that it's going to be a little bit of both, right? But there's never been a moment where I was just like, well, that's kind of disappointing and a letdown. But so I think people are going to be impressed no matter what. And I would say as far as, you know, save scumming and things like that, for anyone who tries to tell you don't do that, they're lying. Yeah. They do it themselves. Yeah. That's what a CRPG is about. It's a big component there, and
can you all tell that Shade loves Dark Souls?
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, like failing and trying again that's a video game. That's what video games are. Yeah, and you should.
That's a core mechanic of video games.
Exactly, and sometimes you should just carry on and accept that, like, okay, well, those quest lines are closed. But I do think that, you know, this was a pacing issue, and there's a sense of urgency in the narrative, and this is a problem for most RPG video games. There is a sense of urgency in its narrative that makes you go, okay, well, I gotta hurry and do this. That can actually break the game.
Because you're not grinding the level you need or whatever.
Well, not just that, but like certain quest lines will not open up the way that they're supposed to. There's some mechanical things that are going on that appear to be tied to taking long rests in the game.
Interesting.
And so you should be thoughtful about that. Essentially, if your characters, your little characters are saying, "Oh, I'm tired," take that long rest because there's probably like a story beat that they're expecting to happen. Yeah. But at the same time, you have to be kind of careful because if you take too many long rests, other things can advance in the background. Yeah. Which is interesting. But then now it's like, oh shit!
It's sort of like Dead Rising where you have that clock the whole time.
But you don't get to see this clock. And, you know, there's kind of a give and take in that. You need to be kind of find that balance. But also acknowledge, just understand for yourself that the urgency isn't always, it sometimes is that urgent, but other times it's just not. And you need to kind of figure it out and be ready to maybe go back a couple of times. Yeah.
Okay, so we've done for me, the core three that I looked for in a video game or a game experience, but I'm going to add one last one on the end here, which is for people who are, you know, TTRPG like stans, people who really love the art form, the medium, and all this kind of stuff, and are looking to kind of scratch that itch with this game. How does it do?
Oh, I mean, again, I am playing D&D. Yeah. There's no doubt in it. And if you're someone who This is actually another thing that I think CRPGs can do. I'm not big on romance plots in general in any gaming experience. This game is horny as hell. And honestly, another fun thing, like, I think that it may be eye-opening to some men, you know, and I'm sure myself included, to just be hit on as much as you are in this game, to be like, oh, is this how exhausting it is for women?
Yeah.
Because there are a couple of NPCs that I'm like, guy,
chill out.
We literally have had 2 conversations. I said one nice thing to you. We are not going forward in this. This isn't the relationship that we're having.
Yeah.
And I've had to like really fend that off a couple of times. But at the same time, I'm really looking forward to, with some of my other playthroughs, fucking leaning into that and being like,
high charisma bard.
I'm gonna, I'm gonna get totally, you know, I'm gonna jump Gale's bones. Give me that wizard staff. But you know, it's something that I think people will feel maybe more comfortable with in a CRPG setting than they would at the table. Yeah.
I mean, but also going back to my original thing about video games writing being a little juvenile in some places. I mean, there's a long and storied history of like, hey, you want to play this sex mini game so that you get your health back or whatever?
Yeah. And that's something that, like, I will say, they do turn off, like, you can turn off and it will like fade to black for that, which great. I'm so glad that option exists. And I'm so glad that for those who don't want it, that option also exists. So it's D&D.
All right, then we're approaching the end here, and all I want from you is a general thumbs up, middle, thumbs down on, like, if people are interested in, you know, D&D or Baldur's Gate in general, like either from a video game or from a TTRPG standpoint, what do you give it? Thumbs up, thumbs middle, thumbs down?
You want to ruin your life?
What a great way
thumbs
to put
up.
it. It's interesting. The whole thing about these games is that, like, I love The Witcher, I love Red Dead Redemption 2, I love all these games. They fucking destroy my ability to function because I put like 100 hours in and I'm like, I haven't beat this game yet. Yeah. Because I can't just like run through it like a normal person. I'm sure that
someone here is, you know, maybe someone listening who has played it is going to go, he's at 80 hours and he's only still in Act 2? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've also, you know, done a few things here and there, and I didn't do everything in Act 1 either. It's worth saying that I skipped an entire area section, because I was like, oh, no way would I get involved in this, because I was playing into that. Well, my character would be worried about urgency on this, and I think getting caught up in this other thing just isn't something they would care about.
Priorities.
But me as a player, I'm thinking about all that I missed out, and I'm like, I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, for my other playthroughs, how do I really go and do this? It's a swamp. I'll just say that for people.
Shrek's there's a Donkey's
swamp.
There. A dragon is there. It is Shrek 4.
And the game's still real horny. So you can live out those Shrek dreams, guys.
Well, that's awesome. Okay, so I, as somebody who has a PS4 and a computer that can't run shit, I'm going to wait till my PS5 dreams happen and then maybe I'll get it there when I have months to spend. But thank you, Shade, our investigative reporter of Baldur's Gate 3. Anything else you want to say about the game before we close it down?
Oh, you know what? One other really great thing about this game, Larian's very nice. They did such a really thoughtful EA in general, and they're the kind of company that is very grounded. This game is only $60.
That's awesome.
Which is wild to me because games are $70 these days. And it doesn't have any like stupid DLC.
Season
you have to
pass,
be season pass. You need to. It's literally like, I've bought the game, I own the game, I enjoy the game.
One thing that I really love about what I hear is that it is also a final product of a game rather than, okay, this game, people are going to play it for a month and then we're going to fix all the problems that they do and then we're going to keep moving.
It's worth saying there are things. There's stuff. Yeah, there's a couple of small things here and there. Like they had to do some hot patches, but they're pretty minor in comparison to other games like Cyberpunk or something. Where No Man's Sky is I mean, No Man's Sky is great now, right?
Yeah,
I haven't played it in ages.
It just missed its window because it had to do so much.
If they had, if they could have delayed for like 4 years, then But at the same time, if they had delayed for 4 years, they would have been even closer. Then no one would have cared, and they would have been even closer to Bethesda. Starfield.
Yeah. Star Citizen.
Is it Star? No, it's not
Star Citizen's the other one that like took forever to build and was like the most expensive game ever created. Had huge expectations, and then people were like, "I don't give a shit."
I forgot Star Citizen exists. No. The Bethesda one's coming out in like a month.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's their new IP.
Cool.
Anyway, it's a full game. Get it?
That's awesome. All right, everyone. That was our investigative report on Baldur's Gate 3. Thank you for listening to Tabletopped. If you like Tabletopped, you should know that we're a member of the Helios Network, a regular podcast network for regular people. If you like what you hear from us, please keep listening. Join our Discord. Go to our website, tabletopod.com. But you can also check out some of the other shows on the network, like Wasted Truth, a really great podcast about two bartenders telling the stories of their profession from the Nashville bar scene. It's very, very good. As a ex-bartender myself, I chortle and laugh all the time from that podcast, so go give it a listen. All right, everyone, please feel free to drop a 5-star rating if you enjoyed the podcast, and we will see you next week for another episode of Tabletopped. Goodbye!
I'm going to go play Baldur's Gate. See ya.
All right, guys, what do we want to talk about for the commercial?
Maybe the hot dog is a sandwich kind of a thing?
No, that's stupid, man. Everyone knows a hot dog is not a sandwich.
All right, what do you want to do then?
Let's talk about what everybody wants to talk about, UFOs.
So my toilet Mike Tyson was telling me the other day that you can survive a zombie apocalypse in a PetSmart.
Dude, are you okay?
Yeah, what was that?
I'm sorry. I don't even know what's happening right now. I've been listening to our podcast a lot recently, and it's a ton. What's going on?
All right, I'm just going to make this easy. Hey, y'all, we are the hosts of Master and Debaters, the podcast that debates all of life's silly questions. Join us every week as we present our hardest opinions on the softest topics. I'm Puck, and football is the worst sport.
I'm Alex, and a hot dog is absolutely a sandwich.
I'm Spencer, and the Beatles suck.
This is Master and Debaters. Find us wherever you get podcasts, and as always, stay mad.